What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. For those of you who have subscribed to my channel, I want to say thank you. For those of you who are also watching my videos, I want to say thank you. In this video, we are on to the Godly Lifestyle series part 3. If you haven't watched part 1, please do make sure you watch part 1 because I do a little bit of introduction there. In this video, as you can tell by the title, it's called The Calling and the Fame, and we're going to deal with James chapter 1 from verse 9 to 11. Now, most of you who do watch my videos, you know that I always have notes in each of my videos so like I don't forget what I'm about to say. So I'm just going to open up the scripture in my Bible. Okay, so believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high position, but the rich should take pride in their humiliation, since they will pass away like a wild flower. For the sun rises with scorching heat and withers the plant. A blossom falls and its beauty is destroyed. In the same way, the rich will fade away, even while they go about their business. Now, it takes a lot of meditation to really understand what James is trying to say here, and I'm going to break it down for you all in this video, what James is trying to say and how that affects your godly lifestyle. Now, one thing that you need to pay attention to in this particular scripture is that in the very beginning of the sentence it says believers. So this is not referring to people in the world. This verse 9 is not referring to people in the world. It's referring to godly people. It's referring to the righteous people, the people who are followers of Christ. Now he's saying believers in humble circumstances ought to take pride in their high position. Now, what does James mean by humble circumstances? And it means to be put in a situation that requires you to have humility. Now, some people don't understand what humble means. Some people are getting it wrong. Just because I have 6 cars doesn't mean that I'm not humble. Just because I decide to have a big house and build 3 other houses doesn't mean that I'm not humble. Just because I have a lot of money and I don't give to the poor does not mean that I'm not humble. Okay, humble means to be meek, to be respectful, to be submissive to authority. You don't look down on anyone and you don't think too highly of yourself. One thing is to have confidence in yourself and confidence in the way you look, but it's different to thinking highly of yourself. They're not the same thing. Okay, so that's what it means to be humble, to be meek, to be respectful, and to also be submissive to authority. When I'm talking about authority, your parents, your pastor, like anybody who's put in a higher position than you, to be submissive to that. So that's what it means to be humble. Now James saying in humble circumstances. Now, to be put in a humble circumstances would be to be in a situation where it requires you to be humble. So there's certain position in life that requires you to be humble, such as being a president, being a pastor, being a doctor. There's certain positions in life, circumstances, situations where you have no choice than to be humble, because if you're not humble, your attitude or your character could actually mess it up for you. Now, the second bit is saying they should take pride in their high position. Now, what does it mean to take pride in something? Now, to take pride in something means to have a deep pleasure for it, to be satisfied with it, to have joy in that position that you're in. You know, if you worked hard for something and you end up getting it, you're proud of yourself. You're proud that you got it. You know, you show it off to people. If you're with someone that you're proud to be with, you tell people, you show them off through pictures or social media, whatever. That's not being prideful, but it's just taking pride in what you've got. So James is saying that believers in humble circumstances need to take pride in their high position. Now, the reason why James is saying that you should take pride in your high position as a believer is because you will not be able to get to that position if you didn't put your work into it as well. One thing is to have the calling of God upon your life. Another thing is for you to accept that calling and for you to cooperate with God in order for that calling to be achieved, in order for God's will to be achieved in your life. Because we all know that to accept God's will is a choice, it's a free will, it's not by force. God does not force anyone. He does appear to people who don't look for him, and he appears to people who also look for him, but at the end of the day it's still a choice if you still want to follow him. Now, before God can put any believer in a high position in life, best believe that there is a lot of sacrifices that is being made. Even in general, even with people in the world, before they get to a certain position in life where people honor them and respect them, a lot of sacrifices have been made. As a Christian, you still make a lot of sacrifices. You make sacrifices in your time. You put your time into it. You pay your tithe and offering. You sow seeds. You have a prayer life, because any believer that wants to make it to the top, their prayer life needs to increase. They need to pray. They need to spend time with God. They need to read more of God's word. They need to do God's will. They need to obey God's instruction. It takes leaving your desire and your will, put it aside, to follow God's will. So there is a lot of sacrifice that has been put into that. And not only that, before God can put you in a high position as well, there are times where God has to hide you. There's hidden season, there's wilderness season that you have to go through. Even people in the Bible have gone through it. Even me sitting down talking to you, I'm still in it. And there's seasons where you're doing God's work and nobody recognizes you. You're preaching the gospel, nobody's listening to you, nobody's paying attention. You're not getting any recognition because God is still hiding you. He's still molding you. Even in your gift, even what you're called to do on this earth that's going to produce money, God still has to work in the inside of you. He has to prune you, change the way you think, change the way you behave, change your mindset. There's a lot of things that has to be done in the inside of you before God can put you in that high position. But what James is saying is that when you do get to that position, you should take pride in that. You should be happy. You should take pleasure in that. You should be satisfied that you've got to this point, because it takes your cooperation with God to get you to that point. It's not a one-sided thing. If you decide not to cooperate with God in order for you to be in a certain position in life as a believer, I'm not talking about the people in the world, but as a believer, if you don't cooperate with God to get to a certain position in life, there is no way God can work through you. God can't do the things that He needs to do in you, and there is no way you will get to that position. Okay, because it's God's will. Following somebody else's will means I'm putting all my desires one side. I'm putting all my plans to one side, and I've made up my mind that I want to follow this person and do what this person says. So it really does require a lot of sacrifices. Now, if we go on to verse 10, it says, "But the rich should take pride in their humiliation, since they will pass away like a wild flower." Now, let's define what humiliation means. Humiliation means to be embarrassed, to be insulted, to face shame, to face disgrace. Okay, that's the dictionary version. Sorry, that's the dictionary definition of humiliation. Is to be embarrassed, to face insult, to face shame, to be disgraced, people mocking you, people talking bad of you online or face to face. And James is saying that you should take pride in that, because one of the things the Holy Spirit said to me is, if you were a nobody, nobody would be talking about you. All the celebrities that people talk about, if they were nobodies, if they were just regular people who just woke up, eat, watch TV, sleep, no one has time to go online to talk bad about them. So James is saying that as for those who are rich, when you face a lot of humiliation, you should take pride in that, because if you were no one, nobody would talk against you. The reason why people mock you on social media, the reason why people talk bad of you, now I'm referring to the rich, I'm not referring to just people who, take 1,000 pictures on Instagram and they're not doing anything for a living. I'm referring to the people who are rich, the people who are famous. The reason why you come across people who mock you on social media, come across people who like to insult you, is because you are doing something to impact your generation. And when you decide not to be a follower of the crowd and to stand up and to influence your generation, to be a good person in your generation, to impact a lot of people's life, people got a problem with that. Normal people have a problem with that, and as a result of that, they start looking for your wrongs, they start looking for ways to bring you down, they start looking for your errors, they start looking for your flaws, forgetting that they're just regular people like me and you. All these rich people, all these celebrities, they are the same like me and you. They go to the toilet to pee, they eat when they're hungry, they cry when they're hurt. The only difference is they're using the gift to make money and you're not. That's it. So James is saying, take pride in that. Take pride in that insult. Take pride in that disgrace. Take pride when people mock you as a rich person, because if you were a nobody, no one will talk about you. Now, one thing you have to put into consideration for the rich is that there will be a time where nobody will talk about you. the time where when you see people who are upcoming, right, when they're upcoming, nobody really pays attention to them, nobody really focuses on them that much, no one's really mocking them or anything until they reach their peak season. Now, a peak season, everyone's got a peak season in their career, okay? If you want to be a comedian, an actor, a singer, a dancer, a footballer, a designer, whatever you want to be, everyone has their own peak season. Every business has their own peak season. Your peak season is a season where your face is everywhere, you're the talk of everything, you know, people see you in different advertisements, people see you in ads on TV, people see you in the newspaper, everyone's talking about you online. You know, that one record that just blows out of proportion, and next thing you know, people who didn't know you, they know you. That's your peak season. And when you reach your peak season, that's when people begin to insult you even more. That's when people begin to look at your flaws. That's when people begin to suggest, you know, maybe you should start losing weight, maybe you should do this, maybe you should spend your money like this, maybe you should travel here, travel there. All of a sudden people seem to have an opinion about your life, because that is your peak season. That is a season where you have to be conscious that you will not become a slave to people's opinion about your life. When a lot of people reach their peak season, they become a slave to people's opinion about their life. When people say, oh, maybe you should lose weight, they start losing weight. When people mock them that they're fat, they start losing weight. When people mock them that they're too skinny, they start gaining weight. When people say, you know, maybe we should go to this country, maybe we should try this new cigarette, maybe we should try this new drink, they start doing everything that people suggest. You're now becoming a slave to people's opinion, and that is something that can happen when you reach your peak season. So you have to be very, very conscious. After a while, once your peak season is over, no one is going to talk about you anymore. What do I mean by that? I'll give you an example of a celebrity. Eddie Murphy would be one of them. When I was young, Eddie Murphy was one of the best comedians. His face was in a lot of movies. You know, he was one of the funniest guys around when I was a teenager. His face was everywhere. It was on Disney Channel, it was on movies, it was on ads, and now his face isn't everywhere. At the time when his face was everywhere, there was a lot of talks about him, and talks about his family, talks about his lifestyle, talks about the way he looks, the way he walks, his teeth, everything. And now people no longer talk about him, because now you've got upcoming comedians and upcoming actors who are obviously either doing better or doing more than what he is doing. So you won't see anyone now go on social media talking about Eddie Murphy. You're not going to see anyone now go on social media and mock Eddie Murphy, because his peak season is over. Do you get me? It's not like these people are not famous. These people are famous. The people will remember them, but their peak season is over. Now the latest comedian that you see everywhere is Kevin Hart. You see Kevin Hart in so many movies, you see his face everywhere. Now he's at his peak season. There was a time where he was doing comedy and nobody recognized him, but now his face is everywhere. After a few years, his peak season will be over, and then there'll be a new upcoming comedian. And that's just how life works. So that's the reason why James is saying you should take pride in that, because that is part of, that is part of your peak season. You're going to get mocked, you're going to get insulted. It's part of life. Jesus got mocked, Jesus got insulted, Jesus got slapped, Jesus got hit, and his face was not even on TV at the time. He was just impacting his generation in a great way, and he still got mocked. So James is saying take pride in that. And I know, if you want to be realistic, it's hard to look at someone put a bad comment about you and for you to smile at it. It's not easy. It's easier said than done, but you need to change the way you look at it. If I was a nobody, would you have time to talk about me? A lot of people, the only reason their Instagram is alive and the only reason they have a lot of followers is because they mock well-known people, and people are ready to listen. So without you becoming something, they wouldn't get an increase of followers. Like, for example, the Wendy Williams show. If there aren't celebrities nowadays, her show wouldn't exist. So just have a way of looking at it from a different angle. If you're mocking me, you're insulting me, and I'm here impacting a generation, obviously you've got a problem with what I'm doing, and I don't have time for you. I'm just going to keep doing what I do. And that's why a lot of celebrities, they don't pay attention to comment. Now when I'm talking about celebrity, I'm not talking about you earning 1.5 billion. I'm talking about people who are influencing their generation. You don't have to earn a huge amount of money to be a celebrity. Don't believe that lie. You just need to be you need to impact your generation, impact people, be an influencer, do something that can create money for a living, do something that can change people's lives, do something that is new into the world. Just find a way to impact your generation. Don't just come to this world to eat, watch TV, sleep, work, and then go to bed. There's more to life than that. There's a lot more that you can do, a lot more people that you can help, a lot more people that you can get on board to do what you do. Now, as part of your godly lifestyle, I'm guessing that you watching me, you know your purpose. I pray to God that you know your purpose. If you don't know your purpose, go and find your purpose. Go and discover that. Go and pray to God about it and find and work on that purpose, okay? Because when you are on your purpose, you are going to reach a peak season. Even if you're a pastor, even if you're an evangelist, even if you're a choir singer or a choir leader, you are still going to have your peak season. There's a lot of gospel artists that had their peak season and their peak season is over. So this is not just for people in the world, it's also for people in the church. But it's important to discover your purpose and to make sure that you're working on that. Now, if you go to verse 11 says, I feel like I got something in my eye. Ugh. Okay, verse 11. For the sun rises with scorching heat and withers the plant. It blossoms fall and its beauty is destroyed. In the same way, the rich will fade away even while they go about their business. Now, that verse 11 there is talking about when your peak season is over. Okay, so look at it as a flower. There's a season where you see beautiful flowers, very, very beautiful, colorful flowers. And then there's a season where the flower starts to, it starts to face down and it's not colorful anymore. It's still a flower. I mean, people still recognize it, people still see it, people still know it, but it's no more bright anymore. It's not up and its face is not lifting up, now it's going down. And that's what James is trying to say about the rich. Once your peak season is over, most people, when their peak season is over, they begin to work behind the scenes. So what I mean by that, a great example of this person is David Beckham. There was a time where, for those of you that don't know about David Beckham, he's an English footballer, and when he was playing football, his name was pretty much everywhere. His team's name was everywhere. I think it was Man U that he was playing for, and back then it was, it was a big name, and it still is now. But now he's no longer playing football, and his name is not really the talk of the town. But now he's working behind the scenes. I think now apparently he's got a football team in Miami. So I'm guessing now he stopped playing football, now he's modeling, he's got a football team training people how to play football. And that's what happens when your peak season is over. You grow up to become something. Once you've become that thing, you train people how to become it. Okay, so you can't train people to do what you do until your peak season is over. And what James is trying to say is, when your peak season is over, people will forget about you. People will no longer talk about you. You're no longer the talk of the town anymore, because there are upcoming people, there are a new generation that are rising up now that people need to pay attention to, and you are no longer the face of the town. And you'll notice this a lot in sports. There's a time where a lot of these individual footballers, their faces is all over the ads, it's all over the football gears, it's on the shoes, their signatures on the tops, it's everything. And then after a season, you don't even hear about them anymore. It doesn't mean that they've gone broke, it doesn't mean that they don't play football anymore, it just means that the peak season is over. And that's why James says that, even while they go about doing their own business, so they still have businesses that they've established during their peak season. This is why it's important to not let the fame get you carried away, or don't let the money make you think that you're still going to survive once your peak season is over if you don't start setting up a business. For the rich to fade away, it means that the peak season is done. Once the peak season is done, you need to start getting people on board and train them to do what you do. Now, no matter how much you train someone to do what you do, there is going to be something unique about you that they can't copy. So don't worry about that, because there are some people, they're afraid that, if I teach this person how I do my stuff, they might just be better than me. At your time, in your season, in your generation, you are the best. The next upcoming person can only be the best in their own time, for their own generation. Okay, so Michael Jackson was the best at his own time, in his own generation. But today, as we speak, he's not, and he's dead and gone. Do you get me? But in his time, anyone who was born in his time and listened to his music in his generation would say he was the best. But in this day and age, in my time, in my generation, he's not. Okay, so don't worry about that. No one can do it the way you do it. There's something unique about you that somebody else can't copy. All right, so that's just it with the godly lifestyle. At some point you are going to face at some point you are going to face the fame. All right, when I mean the fame, it doesn't necessarily mean that your face is going to be on TV, but you might be famous in what you do. So if you're called to be a pastor, there will be a time where God will hide you for a season to work on you, to mold you, and then after that you'll start traveling all over the country. Before you know it, a lot of people around the country will begin to know you. Or maybe you're called to be a motivational speaker, and for now you just do motivational speaking engagements in local places. When God is done working in the inside of you, you start going international, so then you become famous like Miles Monroe. Or it could be a choir leader. Maybe you're just a choir leader in church. Once you cooperate with God, with his will, and he's done working in the inside of you, you could start singing all over the world. So every Christian who's discovered their purpose, who's discovered their gift, is going to reach their peak season. There's going to be a time where the fame is going to come in. Okay, it doesn't mean you have to be on TV, but the fame will come, and it's the same with the people in the world as well. So I hope you learned something in this video. If you do need to ask me something, feel free to message me. Do make sure you follow me on all my social media sites. Until my next video, stay blessed and stay beautiful. Bye.